Hey everyone, I'm Morgan Taylor with the Women in Film Project, and today I'm so excited to have here with me Allison Norlian and Jean Lee from the film 13. So I'm gonna get the ball rolling here, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the Q&A and in the chat. But we are gonna have a great conversation today about the film. So welcome, guys. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Now, why don't we start with a quick introduction of each of you, because I know you both come from very different backgrounds to then come to working in on this film from your other backgrounds as a journalist, as a somebody in film. So why don't we start with Allison? Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey to filmmaking in general, but to the film 13.
Sure. That would take a long time, so I'll keep it short. I'll give you a Spark Notes version. So I was a journalist for the better part of a decade, working in television news, starting in New York State, worked in a few markets, then ended up in Richmond, Virginia. I was a reporter and an anchor, and sort of shifted trajectories eventually, and started a documentary production company with my he was a friend, and we interned together in college, and then we stayed friends. We both became reporters, and we started Birdmine, which is like I said, it started off as a documentary production company, and I think now it's sort of shifting to be just a production company in general that focuses on both docs and narrative. But the whole point of our company is to amplify voices of underrepresented communities, which is something that's very close to my heart as a sister of someone who has cognitive disabilities. And so I've always been also an advocate for people with disabilities and really anyone who's considered other within society or and so that is sort of what led me on the journey from journalism to documentary and now to narrative film. And yeah.
Amazing. Well, that's awesome. Jean, why don't you go ahead? Tell us a little bit about your journey to in the film world and how you got.
Yeah. So my name's Jean. I go by she, her pronouns, and I had a really untraditional path into entertainment. I was previously studying political science, computer science, and I went into the cybersecurity field, and that's still what I work in today. So very, very far from entertainment. But partway through my studies, I really got the sense that I was missing something, and that really was my writing, my love for writing that I had always had since I was a kid. And that summer happened to be a summer that I was seeing a lot of movies and watching a lot of TV, and I was like, you know what, this is another form of writing that I haven't explored. It might be one that I could find some more interest in. So I kind of built my own way. I started taking classes outside of university. Since I wasn't a film major, I wasn't able to get into any of those classes. So I took classes outside of university. I interned at a production company. And then after about a year after I graduated, since I graduated in the pandemic, I moved out to LA. So I've been here not that long, but luckily I've been going to film festivals. Luckily, I've had the pleasure of meeting people like Allison and a bunch of my other writer friends here. And so it's really kind of blossomed from there, and I've been able to pursue kind of both of these things at the same time.
That's awesome. We love talking about the journeys in filmmaking too, because a lot of the people who follow the Women in Film Project, there's so many different backgrounds. I love how diverse the community is just in terms of even the jobs that take place behind the scenes in front of the camera and where we all come from and where we are on the journey. So that's really, really cool. Where did you guys meet exactly? Did you meet in LA? Did you meet through this story? I want to hear that story.
We
Well, you
so
go,
I
Jean.
met Allison's husband first. So Allison and Sean, her husband, both regularly go to Austin Film Festival, and I have been going for the last 2 years. And so I met Sean first, did not meet Allison. And then last year when I went again, I did actually meet Allison, and we kind of hit it off mainly because we were in the corner talking about cats. Um, and it just kind of blossomed from
Accurate.
there. Yeah, like we've been like inseparable since. Like it really, like honestly, like every single day we are texting each other. Every single day we're like sharing pictures with each other. Like we are always in contact with each other, and it's
Mhm.
just felt so natural. And so when Allison started working on this project, I was one of the first people to read it, and I was so excited about it. And um was so excited that she wanted to pursue this further and actually produce it as well.
And my husband has since been pushed out of the picture now that Jean and I are. No, I'm just kidding.
It's just us.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And what stage are you in the film right now? Because I saw a post recently, you're green lit, but where are you now in the journey? And then we'll take a step back and look at how that's been for you guys so far.
Sure. So we are technically in pre-production. So we have been fundraising for the last, I guess it's been less than a month because it's a 36-day fundraiser, I believe, and we've only been doing it for maybe 20 something days, Jean.
Yeah, it's a 45-day fundraiser.
Sorry, 45 day.
We've been at it for about 2.5, 3 weeks. So
yeah.
Well, actually, 3. I don't know. I don't know numbers. We don't know numbers. But it hasn't been that long, which is why it's so exciting.
Yeah, and so we've been fundraising and also in pre-production, meeting regularly. So Jean and I are co-directing 13, and then we have a friend and fellow filmmaker, Heather Ostrov, who is our producer. And so we've been meeting regularly every week, the three of us, sort of going over the script, making prop lists, figuring out what we need in regards to locations, location scouting, chemistry reads with actors. So it's been sort of a all-encompassing second job, I think, for all of us, but it's been really fun. But yeah, and then we just got greenlit yesterday, which was really exciting. We were already on, I think, a really great path. We were at about 65% funded yesterday morning when the morning began. And then I had a meeting with the Jewish Federation. So 13 is a Jewish story and it's inspired by real life. And I had a meeting with the Jewish Federation of South Jersey, and it went really well. And they donated to help us reach our greenlit goal. And so now we are happy to say that we've been greenlit. We're 80%, we're a little more, I think 82% funded at this point.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So a little context when we say greenlight, with Seed and Spark campaigns, you need to reach that 80% threshold to have the funds released. So when we say green light, we just mean that we hit the 80% funded threshold.
Yeah, we still have about $4,000 more to raise to hit the $20,000 mark that we're trying to meet. And so if you're watching and you feel like you want to donate to a really great project, you should hit up our Seed and Spark.
That's absolutely, everyone watching, go and donate. We love supporting fellow filmmakers. And it's truly a beautiful story just from what I've read and what you guys have said so far. Let's get into that. I know it's based on a true story. Why don't you tell us sort of the side of the true story, and then maybe we'll talk about how that transition of almost adaptation and turning it into something that can be produced for film.
Sure. So I'll take that because it's inspired by a real story that happened in my own life. And so the real story is that my older sister, who is 6 years older than me, so she just turned 40 May 2nd, and she is severely cognitively disabled. And so we were raised by a single mom, and we're Jewish. And so growing up, we often felt like outsiders, both in the Jewish community and in the outside the Jewish community, because outside the Jewish community, not only were we I was, the daughter of divorced parents with a severely disabled sister, but we were Jewish, which made us outsiders. And then in the Jewish community, we were outsiders because of our family dynamic. And so it was one of those situations where we never really felt like we had a place, as sad as that sounds. And so, that has really inspired all of my work as a journalist and a writer. I really sort of took, I think, the negativity that I experienced as a child and tried to funnel it into positive. And I think a lot of why I do what I do is because I want to make others feel less alone, because I felt really alone for a long time. And so anyway, saying all that to say that leads me to why I wrote 13, which when my sister turned 13, my mom had been an advocate for a really long time in various capacities for my sister and for me. And when Becky turned 13, it was really important to her that my sister have a bat mitzvah, even though, as I said, my sister is severely cognitively disabled. And in order to have a bat mitzvah, you need to go to Hebrew school for a number of years. You need to study the Torah and your Haftorah for about 9 months to a year before the actual bat mitzvah happens. And that's something my sister couldn't do. And so in order to have a bat mitzvah for someone like Becky, you need to modify the experience. And in real life, my mother did approach our rabbi, Rabbi Khan, and he was very receptive to the idea. And so we had the bat mitzvah, and it was joyous and amazing and beautiful. And I will always remember I think it was just like a very instrumental moment in my life of seeing how important advocacy is, how important speaking up for anyone is, because you just never know what the answer could be. And in this case, it really kind of created this inclusive movement. Becky was the first person with a disability to have a bat mitzvah at our synagogue. And, going forward, more people with disabilities were able to do so because my mom decided to speak up. And so that was really the message I wanted to get out there. And, for us, we're really lucky that our rabbi was receptive to the idea at this conservative synagogue where we belonged. But I've heard horror stories from other people who did not have that same experience, where they've approached a rabbi about having a bat mitzvah for their disabled child, and the answer was no. And so it's the rabbi in my story, which I do not, and I guess now I think I might be getting ahead of myself because I haven't even told you guys the log line in the story. But if you want me to continue on that, or I can wait and let you ask a question.
Sure. No, that was all really, really good stuff, though. It's beautiful how we, even as storytellers, we draw from real life. And often those are the most precious stories, and something that can turn into something really beautiful that inspires people because you're drawing from something that's so important to you. So that's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. And so 13, and I'll just give you the log line really quick. It's so the log line is a mother fights to have a bat mitzvah for her disabled, terminally ill child in a synagogue that refuses to break from tradition. So that's the log line. Again, inspired by the situation. The rabbi in my story, though, is what I like to call a roadblock. I don't think he's an antagonist. He's a roadblock. He is not a bad person. And you learn that when reading the script, and you'll learn that when watching the film. And he has his own really intense backstory as well that you learn. But he ends up, just like I said, he's a roadblock that I don't know if I'm saying too much, comes around. And so that's what 13 is about. So.
No, that's awesome. As co-directors, were there other things that you creatively perhaps changed from the real life story to help make a story that's a different medium, that's film, rather than say a documentary that is fully real life?
Yeah, I think that, like for example, in real life, my sister wasn't terminally ill. So I did that to raise the stakes a bit. And I think that we had to sort of give the rabbi a really intense backstory that made that, I think the story is interesting on its own, but you have to add layers to it for film. And so I think the way that I wrote it, like I said, it's inspired by the real story, but the rabbi in the film, like I said, is sort of, he's an amalgamation of a lot of other experiences that we did have at the synagogue as sort of a non-traditional family in a conservative synagogue. So he's sort of like what I experienced in other ways. And also, like I said, had heard stories of other disabled people who were not fortunate enough to have the bat mitzvah like my sister was. And so that's so I had to change some aspects of, in real life, our rabbi was accepting, and but that's not to say other rabbis haven't been accepting. And so that's why I changed sort of his character arc and everything like that.
Right. And I love how even as you're telling me this, there's the way that you wrote it is even compassionate to all sides, in terms of you wrote it like there's a reason why he clings to tradition, or there's reasons behind everything. And I think that makes for a very dynamic telling of a story.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I really was passionate about because I think so much of Jewish life, so much of sort of what's happened to Jewish people over the years, we've been victims in a lot of different situations, and I think that victimization sort of has led to this. We honor our traditions, but I do think that there is this idea that Jewish people have had to assimilate in so many aspects of life, no matter where they lived. And so clinging to tradition is really important to people. And so I really wanted to show that, uh, but also sort of introduce the idea of change and inclusiveness and how traditions can be sort of altered to be better for everyone, for the whole community. So, of
Awesome. Yeah, and thank you for sharing the story.
course.
Yeah, for both of you, creatively, what's been the process in pre-production of really pulling all those things together? I know you mentioned the fundraising, casting. Why don't we pick one of those things and kind of expound on it? What was that like?
Um, Maybe we can talk a little bit about our casting process. This is the
Yeah.
first time either of us have gone through this. I've worked on a few sets before. Allison has only worked on like documentary journalist sets. So it was very different for us since like I came from mostly a production standpoint. I had not like done all this pre-production work before. And it was both like thrilling, I think, and also very stressful. Um, I know for Allison, and you're welcome to step in and speak about this, but I know it was wonderful seeing your words come to life. And even just in self tapes, when we weren't even like seeing the actors face to face, it was beautiful in a way, to see these emotionally charged moments and have a face to put to them. And that was one of the wonderful things about casting. It was a difficult process. Luckily, our producer Heather, she used to work for Breakdown Services, so she was actually able to help us a lot in terms of figuring out exactly which sites we need to go to, how we need to navigate that process. We texted her many times in the middle of the day and like, Heather, help.
Help.
But it was wonderful, and we were so, I think also for this film, because it is so tied to both two communities that are marginalized, like both disabled folks and as well as the Jewish community, it was so important for us to make sure our casting was authentic. And so that added another layer of complexity and challenge, just because you can't specifically ask for only people of a certain descent or a background to apply to your role. But we did a lot of work and research and talked to all of our actors to make sure that they really did have a personal connection to the story, and that they were bringing kind of their experience into the role. And we're so thrilled with all of the actors we cast because they do have that personal background, whether it is a disability that they are living with, or being Jewish, or being a minority. Like even our only non-Jewish character in this film is a minority. Bringing that experience into the film was so important to us, and so something we really looked for when we were casting.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of what Jean said. It was really, really important to us to cast authentically. Going into this, I'm a journalist, and I've been a journalist for a long time. And so I've written stories, I've read a million stories about sort of the debate around authentic casting and whether actors should, actors who are of a certain descent should have to play, whatever descent is being portrayed on the screen. And so I know for the Jewish community specifically, it has been a point of contention because oftentimes, Jews come in all shapes and sizes and colors and whatever, what have you. And a lot of times when it is a Jewish story, non-Jewish people are being cast, even though there's a plethora of amazing Jewish actors out there. And so I don't know what the answer to that debate is, but what I do know is that I do care about authentic casting, especially as someone who is an advocate for marginalized or minority communities. And so it was really important for me to have that in this film. Like we even talked about, we know some other actors who are not Jewish who have sort of a larger platform that like maybe we could have got them for this film, but we talked about it and it was sort of at the end of the day we decided no matter, even though that might be good for our film, it's important that we stick to our guns with this because we really want to have we really just want to be representative of the community, and we also think that it will help our film with to have people who understand the topic that we're talking about, which for me, even though this is the first time that I've cast actors, it's been really a cool experience to sort of, when they were submitting tapes and the actors submitting tapes inspired by my mother singing the Shema, you know, it's a song in Judaism, and they like knew the song and they were singing it so beautifully. And so, you know, that's not something that a non-Jewish actor could necessarily bring to the role. Anyway, I say all that to say we cast all Jewish people for the Jewish roles, as I almost said as Lee just said. As Jean just said, we cast Lee Shorten for our doctor role. He's a friend and a person of color. And for our role inspired by my sister, we cast a young woman who is not only Jewish, but she's also disabled. She's on the autism spectrum. And so she brings that aspect to it as well. So yeah, and it was definitely a thrilling but stressful experience, as Jean said.
That's so cool. And yeah, it's just and I'm sure that will lend to the authenticness of the script coming out through the actors, and the acting really bringing the story to life in a new way. Would you say that? Yeah, no, I'm really excited for what you guys are doing, and to see the journey continue through filming and to see the finished product.
We are too.
Thank you.
In terms of I guess in the spirit of stressful situations thus far, is casting was that the most difficult, or were there other things that are kind of maybe newer experiences in this type of filmmaking that arose during the process so far?
I mean, in a way, I think it's all been kind of thrilling and stressful. Because it's I mean, Jean has made and been on sets before and been part of short films. This is my first time ever making a short film, and like I film and I edit, and I've been on sort of documentary type sets, if you will, but it's very different than narrative film sets. And so it's all new to me, and so it's all a learning. It's a learning experience, and so everything from casting to location scouting. But I've been basically a producer my whole life as a journalist, so the producing aspect has been sort of, I don't know if easy is the right word, but it's been less stressful because I sort of know what to do. Like I know how to navigate that world, but it was a little different, I think, with casting and some of the other aspects. What about you, Jean? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's just been a learning process overall. I think fundraising is always going to be stressful because, you know, you're asking a lot of people, and right now is not the best financial time for a lot of folks, and we are, you know, very aware of that. So whenever our friends donate, we are just so immensely grateful that they're willing to like believe in our vision and our project. So that's always stressful. I think though, overall, it's really just learning to adapt and to not be so like, obviously, like knowing where your lines are and where your vision stands, but also being willing to say like, okay, like the doctor's office doesn't quite look the way we thought it was going to, and that's fine. And production is really just about things falling apart and putting them back together again.
Yeah. Miracle work.
Yeah, I want to delve further into the fundraising conversation if that makes sense. Just I'm thinking of all the people who are listening who may have a project on their heart, or something that it's a very new idea, or something that they're at the very beginning stages of. What did you guys, I mean, like process wise, how did you determine a budget, or how did that get started even before you started asking for fundraising?
Yeah, so I think actually the first person I spoke to before this even sort of came about was a line producer that Heather, our producer that we had told you about, introduced me to. And so a line producer is someone who deals with all the money. And so Shane, his name is Shane, he pretty much came up with a budget. And he came up with a budget that was sort of the ideal budget, which would be, you know, $40,000, $50,000. And then when I was like, well, we got to get that down a little bit. We're crowdfunding for this, and I don't think that's a feasible amount. And so then we went back and sort of figured out what we could take out, how we could work it to hopefully make a film at the $20,000 budget, which is a micro budget. Then we applied because we wanted SAG-AFTRA. Well, we wanted Naomi, who is our actress playing the role based on my sister, and she's SAG. And so then we decided, okay, we're going to have all SAG actors. So we had to apply for the micro budget sort of, I don't even know what you'd call it, Jean. It's like a micro budget
agreement. It's an agreement.
Agreement. Right. Okay. So yeah. And so we applied for that. And then it sort of, once we had the line by line item sheet that Shane made for us on, how much, and then things shifted, actually, I should add that, once I sent out letters, emails to synagogues, and, this is how much this is going to be. This is how much this is going to be. And so over time, things shifted, and then you'd have, an actor say, well, you don't have to pay me anything. Like, I just want to do this because I think it's a great project, and you can put the money you pay me back into the project. So, over time, things shift. Thank you, Lee Shorten, as being the amazing human you are to offer that to us. But yeah, that's pretty much how it's worked. And so 20,000 is pretty much hopefully going to be able to pay for mostly our pre-production. And then we'll see, we're talking about possible, both two of our actors, actually, I think three, I think David sings too. They're all singers too. And so we've talked about maybe doing a fundraiser in the future with them to raise some money for post-production, even though we do have some of the money coming in right now is for post-production, but we'll see if that might make it, we might need a little bit more. So we'll see. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. I don't know, Jean, did I forget anything?
The TLDR is, it's tough. We, even like small minute decisions from like what platform are we using to crowdfund, and like at what point do they release the funds to us. So like I said, Seed and Spark, you get greenlit at 80%, which means you get the funds that you've raised. There are other platforms that will give you the funds no matter what. There are platforms that will be like, no, it's all or nothing. You have to reach 100% to get your funds. So even those decisions came to play for us. We had to work a lot on incentives, like, if people donate $25 for $500, what are we providing to them? What are we able to use to kind of both show our gratitude and also like get people to, be a little bit more engaged in our process. And those are all things that we had to sort out before we even started this crowdfunding campaign. And it was challenging, and it's still challenging because every day we're checking and we're like, okay, like now we gotta issue thank yous to everybody, and we gotta produce graphics for everybody. It is work, but it's also important that people feel like they're part of your process, that they're actively contributing to your effort, and that's how a lot of indie filmmaking gets done.
And I just have to add that I always knew my and our communities were amazing, but this process has like, I don't even have the right words to thank the community, because the way that they have come forward to help us is just nothing short of amazing. From our family to our friends, to the writing community, as Jean and I are both writers, and so we're part of these various on Twitter, the writing community on Twitter and on Facebook and on Instagram. And so all of our writer friends have really come forward to help us by donating and sharing. And it's just been amazing. They're just wonderful humans.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's good to have community. I'm curious about time frame, even in terms of writing, if this was a script that you've written more recently or had, on your heart, or a draft of for a while.
It was a more recent script. It's actually only the third short film script that I've written. And with that said, it's the third script that I've ever written. So because I'm kind of new to the narrative film world, but it has gone through a number of drafts. So, Jean's a writer, our friend Heather is a writer, my husband is a screenwriter. And so they have been my three sort of confidants, my sounding boards that helped with each draft really perfect the story. And we got it to a place where I was just really thrilled by it. And I was like, I want to make this. And I was like, Jean, do you want to be my co-director? And Jean was like, yeah. And that's sort of how it all, it all came about. And we've entered the script into some contests, and it's doing. I haven't gotten results for any yet, but on We Screenplay or Coverfly. Coverfly. I always get some confused. On Coverfly, it's a screenwriting platform where you enter contests through Coverfly, and I've entered a bunch. And I think what's happening, according to Jean, is that they're scoring behind the scenes my script, but I can't see it yet. But because the scores are high, my percentage, there's like a percentage on Coverfly is going up, and I'm in. So which means it's I guess being received well, which is really a positive thing.
That's great. Do you recommend things like that for screenwriters or scripts that are entering into pre-production to enter contests?
I do, because I mean, the contest world is specifically what helped launch my husband's career. He was a finalist in the Austin Film Festival and various other festivals, and that led him to a manager, which led us to move to LA, which ultimately led him to the connections he needed to become a screenwriter. For me, I'm just this is the first time I've entered contests, so I really don't have any information on my personal journey with that. But with Sean's journey, it's been nothing short of amazing, and has really helped him become the screenwriter he is.
That being said, the writer's strike is ongoing right now, so we do recommend that you read the guidelines put out by the Guild and by the contests about whether or not they are following WGA rules regarding the strike. Because we don't want anybody to accidentally submit to something and then end up not being able to join the Guild in the future.
Yes, that is a big aspect to remember.
Big caveat right now, specifically.
Yes.
Once the strike is over, it's fair game. But while the strike is ongoing, just be a little bit more careful when submitting to contests and fellowships.
That's a very important little bit there for sure. In terms of, and I had this question on a different platform recently, but just in regard to the writer's strike, it's like what sort of with indie filmmaking or making your own things, some people weren't really clear with how to support. Should I be writing? What should I be doing? Are you guys able to speak to that in terms of independent writers?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about that. Independent writing, if you are not submitting to production companies, not submitting to studios, is okay. Like, you can write your own stuff. It's all right. But again, be reading the Guild rules. Just don't be submitting to these struck companies that you're not permitted to submit to. Contests and fellowships are a great area. Generally, the recommendation is to not submit to fellowships because those tend to be directly linked to studios. Contests, it really depends. A lot of people are not submitting right now. It is at your discretion. I know Austin Film Festival put out a statement yesterday that they had consulted with the WGA that their contest did not fall under, a violation of the Guild rules. So just be really careful at this time if you're looking to submit to these things. But if you're doing your own work, that's okay. In terms of independent filmmaking, it really is also a little bit of a gray area. Short films are not covered under the WGA contract. And we're not working with a production company that is struck. We're not working further with like any kind of studio. We're not looking at distribution deals. So that is in some sense a personal choice. It really kind of depends on what you're making. If you are making, for instance, a film that you want to sell, that's a much different discussion than kind of what we're looking at here with 13. So use your best discretion. If you ever have questions, the legal department of the WGA is very active right now and very happy to answer emails. And we really do encourage you to reach out to them if you have any questions.
And I will add, the contest that I applied for was way before the WGA strike even was, well, it was a thought, but it hadn't, happened yet. So I think we knew the WGA strike was coming for a while. So.
No, that's very good information and very timely. So thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that'll help out a lot of people. I'm looking at some of my questions because I've gone through most of them at this point. just trying to make sure I have all the bases covered. So if there's anything I've missed, feel free to popcorn in with it. What kind of timeline are you guys looking at for actual filming? I'm not sure if you've, touched on scheduling yet with your own team, but for a short film like this, what kind of time and scheduling goes into it?
I mean, ideally, we're going to shoot midsummer this summer, and it would be a week that we would be shooting, with the hope that we could potentially have it edited and ready to go by early next year. But that time will tell. It's right now there are many other strikes looming, whether it be DGA or SAG-AFTRA, so that could impact our filming dates. And so we're just sort of taking it day by day right now.
Okay. Cool. And I love how even with fundraising, you guys talked about sort of the phases where it's like, all right, we're gonna pre-production. And then it's almost like the stress or the worries will come later for post and things. It's probably a good approach to have.
Yeah, I think you do your best to plan, but at the end of the day, both this being a complicated time for all the unions and the fact that things will change during production, you just kind of have to adjust and adapt and keep going.
Mm-hmm. But it will get done eventually.
It will happen. Yeah, but yeah, we are definitely monitoring, information about the union negotiations, and we are, in constant contact. So we'll be talking about, how to adjust our plans accordingly if needed.
Perfect. I want to hear about any aspirations that you have in the film industry for, even maybe this being a first short film for Allison and just kind of, all right, you're here now. We talked about your journey to get here, but what do you envision having more scripts, more short films, more stories of this nature? What are your dreams in filmmaking?
You want to go first, Jean? You want me to go first?
I can go. So I mainly write TV. And that's really where my passion is. I love TV. I love saying the same characters on a week-to-week basis. So that's really where I'm hoping to go: TV writing, producing, show running, maybe hopefully someday. We'll see how these WGA negotiations go. That's really where my passion is. And then, of course, always supporting projects like Allison's that are about, diversity, about marginalized communities. Those are also very important themes to me. But yeah, I think mostly I'm hoping to go in the TV realm. And in terms of how the short film fits in, it really both a wonderful opportunity to work with friends, which is always fun, but also a wonderful opportunity to get on the ground, hands-on experience with producing, which is something that I want to move towards.
And so I have Birdmine, which is my production company. And so my hope and my goals for the future, and I think my business partners as well, is that we have a documentary arm that Cody, my business partner, oversees, and we have a narrative arm that I oversee. And with that said, I hope to be producing more, whether it be short or longer form films, specifically in the space of underrepresented communities and amplifying the voices of people, whether it be the disability community, the Black community, whatever have you, communities that are often either misrepresented or don't find themselves seen on screen. I would like to help people be seen and feel seen, and I want to use my company for good. And so yeah, so that's what I hope for the future, and to tell more stories in that way, and to have more great experiences with friends on set like I am right now with Jean.
Awesome. It's been so delightful talking to both of you. I loved hearing about your story, where you guys are going, what you're doing with this film. I want to leave you guys with the last word because I'm out of questions. How can people support your film right now, and later on, how do people stay connected with you as this moves forward?
So as we said, I think at the beginning of the conversation is that we are still $4,000 or so away from hitting our $20,000 Seed and Spark fundraising goal. And so if anyone watching is interested in helping us bring this film to life, we would encourage you to go to our Seed and Spark, which can be found if you just type in Seed and Spark and 13, it'll pop up, and donate, follow our campaign, and share it with, you know, friends and family if you know of others who might be willing to donate. And we're on social media, we're on Twitter and we're on Instagram, and so you can follow us at 13 Short Film on both platforms.
One of them is just 13 Film.
Oh
but
yeah,
I
that's true.
forget which. But we can sync up with you after, Morgan, and
I'll put the
provide you those
links.
handles.
I can put the links in here so that people can
Yeah,
click
that
along
would be great.
and
Yeah.
follow you guys as well as you do this project, and as you move forward. We'd love to stay connected.
Yeah,
Sounds
we're happy
great.
to provide you our social media handles. I think Allison is Allison Two Names on Twitter, and then
Twitter.
Allison Norlian on Insta. My Instagram is private, but my Twitter is scriptlet with 2 T's at the end. So you're welcome to follow us on those platforms. We really appreciate any support. Like, honestly, again, like, we know it's a tough time financially for a lot of folks, but if you even follow the Seed and Spark campaign, we actually do unlock rewards through that, which can help us further down the line with production and post-production.
That's so cool. So everyone go and follow their campaign on Seed and Spark. And yeah, the Women in Film Project is so excited to have you guys here. And thank you all for listening. We'll see you on the next conversation.
Great. Thank you so much, Morgan.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, all.
Bye.